Hey guys, long time no see. I feel like I haven't made a video on this channel for a while. I went to Hawaii and I didn't upload here before that, and I really didn't upload here after that, so it's been like a couple of weeks now. But I wanted to share some books that I recently purchased. I know I did a book haul not too long ago, but I have more. Surprise, surprise. What's new? As you guys know, I thrift all of my books, or I buy them like on Amazon. I usually buy used versions. I rarely buy books brand new. I do buy books brand new occasionally from my local bookstore because I want to support my local bookstore, but other than that, like, I always buy my books secondhand or lightly used because I really don't care if my books are in like perfect condition. I could care less because after I read them, they're not going to be in perfect condition, so what's the point of having like brand new books, you know what I mean? Okay, so the first book, you guys are gonna get mad at me for, but you know how you just sometimes can't help yourself, like you just can't help it and you just can't pass up the opportunity? That was me in the situation. So as you guys know, I've been debating on whether or not I actually want to read the Night Circus, and I was like, do I still want to read this? Should I read it? And I had a lot of people say yes, and I had a lot of people say no. But when I went to Goodwill not too long ago, I saw this. This is the Night Circus hardcover, and I'm pretty sure this might be like the like a special edition, or like the UK cover maybe, or it's like a special edition, or maybe this is just the hardcover, I don't know. But the Night Circus copy that I have is like a mass market paperback, and I really wanted the hardcover one, and I couldn't help myself, and I was like, okay, Kara, if you buy this, you have to read it now. You can't change your mind. But I did, when I was in the store, I did open it up and I decided to read like the first few pages just to see if like I liked her writing style. And I actually really like her writing style. It's very beautiful writing, but I wouldn't say that it's like overkill. So I think that I'm actually gonna like her writing style. So I'm glad I did end up reading a few pages just to make sure, but I was really glad I found this because now I have a hardcover, and if I do really like it, now I have a nice edition. So don't hate me. So next up is Brandon Sanderson. This is Skyward. So I've heard amazing things about this book. This is Brandon Sanderson's, I think, only YA. I don't think he normally writes YA. I think this might be his first YA. And it has this beautiful Target sticker on it. Isn't that great? I love that. But I've heard this is really, really, really good. This is the paperback version, but I'm excited to read this. I've heard Brandon Sanderson writes like really fast-paced, like he's very good at keeping you really intrigued into the story. And so I really want to see if I like Brandon Sanderson's writing. I know I want to read Mistborn like really bad. Actually, I have Warbreaker right here. This is going to be the next Brandon Sanderson I read. It's going to be either this one or this one. I've heard both of these are really good, but I do want to see if I like Brandon Sanderson's writing. So I don't think I've actually hauled this one. I got this on Amazon. It's just the paperback version of Warbreaker. And if you guys are wondering, this is about, I think, a girl who is a pilot, and her dad was like a really, really famous pilot, but then her dad made really bad decisions as a pilot, and he got a really, really bad reputation, and she wants to prove herself as the pilot that she is, and she doesn't want to kind of carry her dad's reputation on her back, so she's trying to, you know, be an amazing pilot and all that kind of thing. And I'm pretty sure this is sci-fi, so lots of sci-fi elements, which I do really like sci-fi, so I'm gonna see if I like it. So next up is a book that I picked up just because I wanted more books like this on my shelf, because I really do like to read thrillers as like palate cleansers. I love reading thrillers between heavy fantasies because I feel like heavy fantasies take a lot of brain power and thrillers don't take a lot of brain power, so I just like to have them on my shelf. So I got There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. Now, I've heard bad things about Stephanie Perkins, but I've also heard good things about Stephanie Perkins. She wrote that series called Anna and the French Kiss, which I'm never gonna read, but this is like a thriller. So this is about like a girl who's in high school. A bunch of people in the high school start coming up dead, but each time someone dies, it's like in a more gruesome way. And so she's just trying to like not get killed because people just keep dying, and it's like really gruesome, I guess. And I'm assuming that maybe she gets stuck in her house and the murderer's inside of her house. That's my guess, but sounds interesting. It reminds me very much of like Scream or something, because Scream is kind of like YA as like a movie, and this kind of sounds Screamish. Like if I can picture this in kind of like that campy type of way, I think I might really, really like it, because Scream does have a little bit of a campy quality to it, and this just kind of sounds like that in a weird way. So we'll see if I like this. I don't know, I've heard good things, but I've also heard not so good things, so we'll see. So next is Girls with Sharp Sticks, and this is a book about these girls at a like boarding school, I guess, and they're treated very poorly, I think, in this boarding school. And I think that it's kind of like a story about these girls like rebelling against their boarding school and kind of like fighting back, I'm pretty sure. But I've heard really good things about this, so I wasn't too concerned with the plot. I was more concerned with the fact that I've heard really good things about it. I've heard a ton of people really enjoyed this, so I was really excited to pick this up, and I love a good like boarding school type of story. So this next book was kind of a random read. Now I have this actually on my Goodreads as me like wanting to read it, like want to read. It's on my want to read list. And I love Peter Pan, just so you guys know. Like there's something about Peter Pan that I've always found so magical. And I remember when I was little I read the Great Illustrated Classics. Do you guys remember those Great Illustrated Classics? And it was the Peter Pan one, and I absolutely loved it. And I remember just being so obsessed with this Great Illustrated Classic. And ever since then I've wanted to read like a Peter Pan retelling. So this is about Germany, and there's like this big outbreak of like disease, and the only people that aren't getting the disease are children. And so there's a bunch of surviving children. Now Captain Hook is this man who is trying to find a cure, and he thinks that the way that he can find a cure for this disease is through one of the surviving children. And what's her name? Gwen Darling is trying to stay out of the hands of Hook. And so she ends up meeting this boy Pete, and he has like this underground gang of kids, the Lost Boys. And so I guess what ends up happening is like Gwen Darling and Pete and the Lost Boys are trying to like outsmart Hook. And it just sounds really interesting. It's kind of set in like the real world, maybe a little bit like, maybe not historical fiction, but like historical fantasy with the Peter Pan storyline. And it sounds so good. And when I heard about this on, I think it was BookTube, I think it was Haley in Bookland that talked about this, I was like, wow, that sounds like really good. And because I've always wanted to read a Peter Pan retelling, I think this sounds like right up my alley. I did want to read Tiger Lily for a long time, but I actually heard it's absolutely atrocious. So I don't think I'm going to be reading that, but I think this sounds really good and I'm really excited about it. It's random, but when I saw it at Goodwill, I was like, yes, like I was so excited because I never really thought that I would end up picking this up, like if I didn't see it at a thrift store or something. So next is Bad Girls with Perfect Faces. This is by Lynn Weingarten, and this is an interesting book because it is about catfishing, I think. And so it's basically about this girl who has a best friend who is a boy, and he ends up getting back with his cheating ex-girlfriend, and she wants to save her best friend from his cheating ex-girlfriend, so she ends up trying to distract his ex-girlfriend with this online guy. And so she kind of catfishes her into thinking that she's like talking to this online guy, and she's trying to distract her so she won't get back with her best friend. And it ends up becoming like this big thing, I think, and I think that's really interesting. I actually watched this really interesting real life catfish story on YouTube not too long ago, and it was so crazy. Like the story was like stranger than fiction, but it was like a true story that happened to this girl. If I can find the video, I'll post it down below because it was so interesting. Like she needs to write a book about her experience because it was that crazy. But ever since I watched that video, I have become interested in like really crazy catfish stories, and I think that this is kind of what this is. It's like a catfish story. So next is A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahereh Mafi. This is the author that wrote the Shatter Me series, which the Shatter Me series was a fun, quick, you know, series that you can like pick up and read literally super duper fast. And I like Tahereh Mafi's writing style because she writes extremely fast paced, and there's something about her writing that just keeps me intrigued. I've talked about this with her writing in the past. So because of that, I've always wanted to read her other books. So when I saw this, A Very Large Expanse of Sea, I was so excited to read it because I love her writing style. And this is about a girl, I think, who is Muslim, and she comes to the United States, I think after like 9/11, I'm pretty sure. I may be wrong on that. But she comes to the United States and she is dealing with a lot of like bullying and racism and hatred and all that kind of stuff. And then she discovers like breakdancing, and that kind of like brings her out of her depression and sadness, and she, you know, all of that kind of thing. So I think it's a really interesting story. I think it's going to be a really interesting story to read and put myself in somebody else's shoes. And because I like Tahereh Mafi's writing, I think I'm really going to like this. So the next book that I picked up was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. So this book has been an interest for me for a very long time. This, I've heard, is just such a fantastic read. It's so good, it's so sad, and I've been wanting to read it ever since I heard about it. Now, the only issue is I got spoiled. Like, I know what happens at the end of this book, and I'm so mad about it because I was so excited to read this, but now I know like a big thing that happens at the end, and it's supposed to be really sad, and now I know what happens, and I feel like it's gonna ruin the book for me. So I still really want to read it because I've heard it's really, really fantastic, but we'll see. So the next book I'm so excited about. Now, I have this fascination with the afterlife. I'm not a particularly religious person at all. Like, I'm not religious or anything like that, so I don't believe in any specific afterlife, but I love to think about what the afterlife could look like. And I've talked about this book, Some 40 Tales of the Afterlives, where he writes like 40 small short essays about what the afterlife could look like in like a fictional world. And I love it because I love pondering what the afterlife could look like, and I love to think about it. I love to think about like different ideas or different scenarios, or like what actually happens, if anything happens at all. It's just something that I'm very fascinated in. I love the idea of ghosts and like entertaining the idea of ghosts, or like how could ghosts exist. And I like to kind of think about like the different ways like physics could work to make that happen, like all different types of things. I just love pondering and thinking about the afterlife. So this book is called The Afterlives by Thomas Pierce, and this is about a man that dies for like a couple of minutes, and then he comes back to life, and he has no memory of like any lights or any tunnels or anything that had to do with the afterlife. He comes back with absolutely nothing, and it kind of puts him into this like place where he just doesn't think anything happens after you die. He becomes like kind of a nihilistic person, and he ends up meeting his wife, and they end up getting very interested in trying to figure out what happens after you die, and they just want to like figure it out, and they start to study physics and all this other stuff. And then they kind of really start to contemplate like philosophy and falling in love, and if falling in love is even worth it, if you know you're gonna have loss, like one of you guys are gonna suffer a really hard loss someday. And Emily St. John Mandel wrote on the back of this, it's bracingly intelligent, beautifully rendered meditation on ghost, technology, marriage, and the afterlife. This is a remarkable novel. So it just sounds like something I'm really gonna like, because like I said, I just love contemplating the afterlife. I love contemplating time and space and dimensions and like what actually is. Is there an afterlife, or is there not an afterlife? What is it? I'm so curious and I want to know. Next up is What I Lost by Alexandra Ballard. I've heard that this is one of the best books on eating disorders within the fictional realm, and I think that this is just about a young girl who gets stuck in a cycle of an eating disorder, and probably her like recovery and all of that kind of thing. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't really look too much into this book and what it was about. All I know is that it's a really, really, really good story, and it's a very good depiction of eating disorders. As you guys know, I had a really bad eating disorder like 15 years ago. I was hospitalized and everything, was in treatment and all that kind of stuff. And so I have a strong background in this. I'm fully recovered now, but it is something that I find very interesting, and I like to see how different authors write it, and to see like what authors do a good job at it, what authors, you know, don't do such a good job at it. But I've heard that this is one of the better ones. So I'm really excited to read this, and hopefully I like it as much as other people. So this next one, the only reason I got this is because I'm obsessed with the cover. Like, this cover is everything, and I was like, I can't not buy this because the cover is that great. Seriously, I'm a cover buyer. I know I'm a cover buyer, and if you say that you do not buy books by their cover, you're a liar. Everybody picks up books and shows interest in books based on the cover. Like, that's why you pick up the book to read the back of the book to begin with, is because you're intrigued by the cover. You know what I'm saying? So this book is called Pizza Girl by Jean Kyung Fraser. Did I pronounce that right? It's everything. It's so cool. It's so like 80s, 90s, retro. It's just everything. So this is about a girl who gets a job at a pizza place, and I think that she kind of struggles at home. Like, she doesn't have a good relationship with her mom and stuff like that, and this woman starts coming in every single week to buy these pickle-covered pizzas for her son, and she becomes ultimately like very obsessed and like interested in this woman, and they kind of start to form this bond. And as she's kind of growing into adulthood, and then this mother who keeps coming in is kind of growing into like motherhood, they start to grow like this bond with each other. And I think that they start to like, she starts to see this woman as kind of like a mother figure, but then like their bond starts to get a little bit tangled, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of lessons learned in here, but that's kind of the basis of the story. It's very short, the text is very large, so this is going to be one of those really, really quick reads, but there was something about this book that really drew me to it, and I think it was the cover, to be honest. So next up is The Lying Game by Ruth Ware. Again, I picked up this book because I want books like this on my shelf for my palette cleanser reads. I love thrillers for palate cleansers to just kind of like get my mind out of like these epic fantasy worlds, and they're just really easy to read and they're really fun to read. And Ruth Ware is a great author. I feel like Ruth Ware is one of those authors that has grown a lot in her career. Like her earlier books weren't that good, but then as she's come out with books, like each book gets progressively better. That's kind of like the vibe I get from Ruth Ware. Like her more recent ones are like really, really good, where her older ones like aren't as good. But I'm gonna try this one. I don't even know if this book has really good reviews or not, but we'll see. We'll see. The next I picked up The Gracier. This is by Kim Liggett. I don't think I talked about this in a video yet. If I have, I apologize. But I think that this is like a young adult version of The Handmaid's Tale. So it has similar plot points to The Handmaid's Tale. And so that's kind of why I found this book really intriguing. And I've heard it is phenomenal. Like I've heard such good things about this book, and every person that I have seen read this ends up absolutely loving it. If you don't know too much about The Handmaid's Tale, it's about like women used for their bodies to procreate basically. And this book is kind of just like the young adult version. It covers a lot of similar topics. So I'm really interested in reading this, and I feel like it's gonna be kind of a quick and easy read as well. And then last but not least, I got White Fur. This is by Jordine Lebert. I think that's how you pronounce it. And I think that this is just like a romance. I love the cover of this book. This is also a really great cover. It's like this girl's face, and I love the font. A stunning star-crossed love story set against the glitz and grit of 1980s New York City, which sounds so fun. 1980s New York City and a love story. You guys know I'm a romance person. Like I love a good romance. And this taking place in New York City in the 1980s and a romance, like sign me up. It sounds so fun. Like I'm really, really, really interested in this. This couple moves to Manhattan in search of a new life, and White Fur follows them as they wander through Newport mansions and East Village dives, Wasp establishment, yacht clubs, the grimy blocks below Canal Street, fighting the forces determined to keep them apart. Like I love when I find a really good cover, and then I also really love the story, because it's just such a good combination. It's so satisfying to like love a book and then also love the cover. You know what I'm saying? Am I just weird? Maybe. Lots of books, I know. I really did buy a lot of books recently. Somebody help me stop. Anyways, guys, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this haul video, and I will talk to you guys in my next one. Bye!